you can just speak into the voice decoder and say, I'm not giving anything to the hungry kids.
I'm not giving anything to the hungry kids.
So with the ice cream, the vodka, pizza pockets, and nothing for hungry kids, that's $37.83.
I hate that this episode is relatable.
Hey, we are Ted and Lisa, and we are nonprofit consultants. Now, nonprofit stuff shows up in popular culture all the time. Sometimes it's way off base, and sometimes it is way too real. So today we're going to talk about Southpark.
Okay, sir, looks like your total is $37.83.
All right.
Okay, and would you like to add a $1 donation to help hungry kids around the world?
Oh, no, that's okay.
Sorry?
I'm good.
I'm sorry, you don't want to give the $1 to hungry kids?
Not today, thank you.
Okay, so the setup here is that there's a Whole Foods in Southpark, and Randy's dad is just buying some groceries. I think we've all had this sort of experience when
Always.
you're at a store or whatever. They're like, hey, do you want to round up to whatever? And like sometimes it's like, it's just 2 cents, not a big deal. And sometimes you're like, oh, they're making me round up almost a whole dollar.
My issue when that comes up is like, it's so weird. Like, you don't know what the organization actually is. You don't know what they actually do. You don't know anything about them. And yet there's this social obligation that says, you should do this right now. And I love this. He's so awkward. He's like, no.
And he's looking around him. He's got people in line behind him.
Okay, no problem. Window's gonna come up and ask if you're helping the hungry kids. Just hit no, I'm not.
Oh, come on.
Try hitting it again. It's the box below the one that says, sure, I'd love to help however I can.
Look, I give money to charity a lot, okay?
Oh, sure you do.
Okay.
I do. I just don't want to every time I shop for food.
That's completely understandable.
Just like the amount of like shame, and he's like having to justify himself. I think nonprofits find themselves in a weird spot because they try to use guilt a lot of times to get people to give.
Oh, it's the worst.
It is the worst because we've all been in Randy's situation, and you feel like, I really don't want to give right now or donate. I don't know enough about the organization. I don't even know if this is actually going anywhere, but it's only a guilt ploy.
Yeah. And when he's like, I already give a lot already, or I give other places or whatever, it's crazy that nonprofits use so much guilt when it's like, you don't have to. Like, there are so many better, healthier tactics that can get people on board. But all this does is set up the situations that he wants to avoid this anytime going forward. Like,
Yeah.
When I run into someone who uses like a strong-handed tactic, it's like, come on, you could just give a little bit, every little bit, every little. I'm like, no, I thoroughly research who we give to. I thoroughly know where our money's going. And if I have an extra $1, I'm going to give to somewhere that I've looked into. That's not to say giving an extra $1 here or there is a problem. But I'm like, if you're going to like use this tactic with me, I will avoid you going forward. I don't feel the need for this kind of discomfort in my life.
If you can just speak into the voice decoder and say, I'm not giving anything to the hungry kids.
I'm not giving anything to the hungry kids.
So with the ice cream, the vodka, pizza pockets, and nothing for hungry kids, that's $37.83.
I had someone one time make a comment about how like they needed some money for something, and they're kind of like, well, how much did your shoes cost? Well, how much did your jeans cost? Well, how much did you spend on? I'm like, that is not relevant. Like, I understand that you think it might be relevant, but that is an underhanded fundraising tactic.
Yep.
To say you spent this much on meat and this much on beer and this much over here and this much over here, and you're choosing not to feed hungry kids. It is not like, it's not acceptable.
Right. Well, I mean,
but it's done. Like, this is accurate, which is so sad.
Well, I mean, like, it's interesting because it sort of feels like they go hand in hand, but donating to an organization is way more about trust that you've built with that organization and what they can do and what they are accomplishing, not about how much you spent on things that weren't an organization.
Right.
And so an organization could have like just a terrible mission statement and not actually be organized and not be accomplishing anything. And that same argument would still apply.
Right.
And it shouldn't.
But the other issue, too, is that we need to build up trust with the people who are giving to our organizations. The grocery store has already built up the trust. Like, someone came in, they're like, I want a bag of potatoes. I know how much the bag of potatoes is going to cost, and I know what I'm getting for it. When I pay for the bag of potatoes, I'm walking out with the bag of potatoes. The trust has already been established for the person shopping. the trust has not been established for the nonprofit. And if you're someone who has looked into various nonprofits, like it's crazy. There are some fantastic nonprofits, and then there are some that use a name incredibly similar that have their org structured in a way where less money is going toward the cause itself. And so as someone who recognizes, and if you're starting to realize that, it's just not the same. I might spend $5 on food. That doesn't mean that I'm obligated to give $5 to an organization I don't know anything about. And we need to be thinking through that as leaders, as we are going out and asking people for money. We need to actually develop the trust.
Isn't it great having a Whole Foods?
This is where I come for lunch every day. Gotta eat healthy to stay fit. Oh, shit, it's that guy. And how are you today, sir? Great.
Oh crap,
Oh my
it's that guy. When you do this, when you use that guilt tactic, like that's the response that you're creating in people, is that they see you walking down the street, or they get the
And they're
mailer.
like, no, no.
Or they get the mailer, or the TV commercial comes on, you're like, oh, not this again. Like, if I could, I will. If I can, I'm gonna avoid them. And obviously, we don't want that to happen.
But here's the thing, like Randy is so many people because he saw him. He's like, oh, I don't want to deal with this guy. But it's the lane that's open. And since he made eye contact, he's not going to actively avoid someone. Just because someone isn't avoiding you means that they're happy to see you. You know?
Listen, before you ring me up, I just want to let you know I'm not going to be giving extra money to charity. So can we just skip that part?
Oh, no problem, sir. They've updated the system, so it's a lot more streamlined now. Okay, there's a picture of a little hungry boy. Will you just press on his belly?
Ow! Ow!
Okay, that's got it. So, with the no help for hungry kids, that's $18.87. Your change is right there. Just pull the sandwich out of the little girl's mouth.
It's funny, and it's also like gut-wrenching, because while this is obviously a little over the top, it's South Park.
Pull the sandwich from the little girl's mouth. Like,
That's
oh.
okay. We talk about this quite a bit on the channel, just about how guilt might get you a little like momentary bump in donations, but in the long term, you're hurting your organization. Like,
Yeah.
if it was anybody real that isn't Randy, and they're doing this to them, and they're piling this much guilt on it, guess what? They're not going to shop at Whole Foods anymore.
Right. It's a weird thing because they've upped the game. It's like, okay, so I'm still going to point out that you're not giving, but now I'm going to make you do something additional in order to not give. Like, you have to get your change that's rightfully yours from this poster of a girl by like removing the food from her mouth since you're not feeding hungry kids. But organizations, like when you start going down the guilt path, the only way for that to sustain is to use more and more and more and more guilt over time.
You have to double down on it.
You have to double down on it.
This is not streamlined.
It's just the new change dispenser, sir.
I can't.
Yeah, she's a hungry one. You gotta pull hard.
The sandwich isn't coming out.
Try putting your foot on her face.
The lady from the salad.
Have a nice day, sir.
I was having a nice day.
He's back at Whole Foods.
He's back there again.
Find everything you needed today?
Yes.
Okay, looks like your total comes to $37.98. Would you like to give $1 to help feed hungry kids?
Yes, I would like to give $1.
You want to give $1?
Yes, I will.
Oh, wow, okay.
I like how he looked around. He's like, yes, I will.
Is everyone seeing this? What? You want to give $1? This cashier is like, oh, it worked. Like, all of our tactics work. We guilted them enough. We did all the stuff. We made them push the tummy on the hungry kid, like, and take the food out of the little girl's mouth. Like, this is what happens when nonprofits use tactics that people don't actually enjoy being a part of. And then suddenly works, and the leader's like, oh, it worked. That's proof. We should keep doing it. We know nonprofit leaders and have like heard from nonprofit leaders, like money that's been spent on advertising, marketing, calls that they've made asking for donations. And we'll have conversations about best practices. And they'll be like, well, one time we did it this other way and someone told me that they liked it. I'm like, yeah, but the other 1,000 people who didn't like it aren't going to call you up and give you a heads up. And so it'll be like this massive thing. And because one person said that they noticed something or one person said they gave a little bit one time is enough to justify. It's like that bias in your head. Like,
Yeah.
I tried it. it worked. And now I don't want to move away from it.
And you got to be careful with feedback systems in nonprofit, because sometimes the people who are not happy, actually most of the time, people who are not happy in nonprofits are going to just stay quiet. They're not going to be extremely vocal about it until it reaches a tipping point. However, people who want to appear to look really, really great are going to come up to the leader of the organization and be like, I really like that. I donated so much. And they're going to like kind of gush on you. And then it's not actually a real piece of feedback.
Yeah. So if you can get feedback from your staff or your key volunteer leaders about what people are telling them without asking them to break like confidentiality, but just, have you got any feedback on this thing? What are you hearing? That's hugely important, because you as the leader, people want to get into your good graces. Like, people want to be connected with the person leading the org. It's very natural. It happens often, but they will tell you what they think you want to hear. And this can create a really bad feedback loop where you think something that happened actually worked when maybe it's not actually working.
So that's $10 for the beer, $4.20 in chocolate-covered peanuts, $26 in filet mignons, and $1 for hungry kids around the world. On amount of donation, it will say $10, $20, or $50. Can you just press the $1 box? Attention shoppers,
Even when he wins, he loses.
the $1 club, giving one whole dollar to help feed hungry children. Here's your t-shirt.
Oh my God.
Oh, won't the kids be thrilled when they get their piece of that big, impressive dollar? For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow. He ended world hunger.
When you are accepting donations as a nonprofit, it is extremely important to value and thank people no matter what amount they're giving at, because for whatever reason, they chose to trust your organization in order to give a little bit or a lot. And that little bit or a lot varies depending on who the person is.
Yeah. And also, this is something that's really easy to fall into is, let's get them to commit to one little thing, and then we're going to ask too much of them without giving them time to give a little bit, and then doing a sincere thank you. Thank you so much for giving $1. That really does help a kid. Probably doesn't feel like a lot right now, but we appreciate it. And it really is going to help a child be able to eat food who otherwise wouldn't have eaten. Those sincere moments of gratitude are huge. But you also, as a leader, have to be careful not to say like, well, I mean, since you're doing $1 anyway, would you do 5? Would you do 10? Would you do 100? Same with volunteerism. If someone finally agrees, like they've been interested in your organization, they ask questions, they finally decide to show up and volunteer for a half hour to prep for an event, be so respectful of that half hour. Thank them so much for that half hour, and don't immediately go for another ask. Because all that he is learning in this clip is, they've been asking for $1. I gave them $1. And immediately they turn around and said, but that's not good enough. You need to do more. And that's really, really hard for people. And it happens way too often. I hate that this episode is relatable.
Hey, if you like this, there's another video link on the screen right now that you might find interesting. We'll see you over there.